life, and especially in business, is a set of experiments. Some of them work and some of them don't. So you got to pivot. It's impressive how much money they have, but I don't think they're successful because littered around them are these failed relationships. The first thing is to just get to know yourself. We live in largely an extroverted world where that's not a common thing to do. Viktor Frankl talks about this in his beautiful book. He says, all of that can be taken away from me. The one thing that can never be taken away from me is my power to decide how I feel about it.
Welcome to Inspired by Success, the podcast where I deep dive into the mindset of successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, and thought leaders. Get ready to be inspired and gain valuable insights to unlock your true potential. Our guest today is an entrepreneur, author, coach, philanthropist, and multi-talented achiever who overcame numerous challenges to redefine success on his own terms. He improved as a father, deepened relationships, embraced lifelong learning, and prioritized emotional well-being, all while inspiring others to thrive by defying societal norms. From scoutmaster to conservationist, MBA to mathematics expert, his diverse wisdom provides a unique perspective on creating a meaningful, vital, and authentically happy life. Get ready to gain uplifting life lessons from our guest, Selig.
Hi, Linda. It's great to be here with you.
Tell us about your story and what pivotal moment shaped the man you are today.
Well, you've just explained a bit about my very fortunate life. I started off in high school learning how to be excellent. I became an excellent student in high school, and I took that lesson with me through the rest of my life. Everything I do, I have a very high bar that I set for myself, whether it's in terms of projects I do or relationships I create. And it's a very fulfilling way to go about life. So along the way, I received my MBA from Stanford and then went to the caverns of Wall Street. And I realized after a while that I was an entrepreneur and I wanted to have my own firm. But it took a number of years for me to sort out really what kind of firm it was going to be and what primary focus and services were that we were going to be able to offer. Because I wanted to, again, provide absolutely great quality services and not overpromise. I wanted to be able to deliver whatever we were suggesting. So I've been doing with my own firm over 3 decades, and just actually was given an award by the Wealth and Finance International, the number one in sustainable investment banking firm in the San Francisco Bay Area. So it's a very nice tribute to all those 250 or more transactions that I've completed and feel very good about. But along the way, because I created this company, I created it based on a set of principles. And one of them was that I wanted to be able to engage in the community. I wanted to be able to decide just how hard to work, what was enough for me, so that I could become a scoutmaster or a little league coach. I could do environmental projects. And so that owning my own firm has allowed me to do that very happily so. I've served on more than a dozen boards over the many years, and I've learned a lot. And a lot of those things that I've learned on this walkabout, as you might say in Australia, has led me to be able to write with some authority and with stories in this book, Thriving, how to create a healthier, happier, more prosperous life.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. Let's talk about your entrepreneurship journey as well. So you created your own investment firm. What lessons did you learn, and what are the challenges that you had to go through, and the problems that you had to solve? But also, for you to be able to have your own freedom. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. When you find the right people, you can actually do more things. And I love that. But can you share any tips and what are the lessons that you learned as an entrepreneur?
Certainly running your own firm requires a lot of discipline. You really need to be able to say, stop. A lot of people that I've met over the years who have their own firm, they're they're working very, very hard, and they just don't know when to leave the office. They don't know that they need to stand up and have some food, or that it's the day off and they're still working. So I have that discipline, and I feel very fortunate that I was able to take the breaks that I needed, and which often meant that I had to say no to a client, say, I'd like to work with you, but I'm fully booked now. So if you can wait 3 months, then we can start working together. In some cases they waited. In some cases they said, we need to work on this now. So one of the challenges is to know your own limits and to take care of yourself along the way. Otherwise, burnout is just very much a possibility. In terms of tips, I would say, and this is maybe more for the service businesses than it might be for product services, but I think a lot of my success has to do with forming really strong relationships with my client. I started with asking questions about their objectives. Now, that's not something that most Wall Street firms would do. They hear that the company wants to do an acquisition or to merge or do something else, and they want to just dash forward and get on with that. But knowing that a lot of people would use a word but not maybe fully understand it, or what they were about was not clear enough. So I spent time up front and then come back to it to find out what their objectives are. So forming a relationship of trust starts with that. And then it's about me explaining what I can do, what I think the process is, and being open to listen and learn and be respectful of what they've accomplished, so that it's a very service oriented approach, which creates great relationships. And it also allows me to say, with some humility and vulnerability, I don't have the exact answer. I have a few ideas, and we can explore which of those ideas feels best. But anybody would say for sure, rock solid, this is the answer. I think you have to really question them. And so I'm able to be vulnerable enough to say to a client who's built up a great firm, let's check out some of these options. And life, and especially in business, is a set of experiments. Some of them work and some of them don't. So you got to pivot.
I like it. Take us back what your firm did, who you worked with. I'm just curious to know. And are you still running it now? And what legacy you
Yeah.
want to leave behind as well? So tell us a little bit about that, what you've built.
I did a lot of thinking before starting my firm. It actually took me 3 years. I was working for one of the big Wall Street firms, and every day I would look around and ask myself, what is the firm that you want to create? And because I had a boss that was really, really very uncomfortable for me, I had a lot of motivation. And I also knew that I would be a great entrepreneur. I could pull this off. Felt very confident about that. So on day one, I started with 5 clients, and I've never looked back. The firm that I continue to run, the Selig Capital Group, is focused on what I consider to be the main questions an owner and a CEO asks. This is primarily private companies that I deal with. And fortunately, because there's so much good business here in the San Francisco Bay Area, I don't have to fly around anymore, which I really appreciate. So the major questions that frequently are asked are, how do I create some liquidity for myself? I've paid myself well over the years, but I know this company is worth a bunch of money. And when I'm ready, how do I uh, create a liquidity event for myself? So that's one question. Another question that comes up is, hey, 10 years ago or more, I started this company with a partner, and we were fantastic partners for a long while, but we are no longer great partners. We've kind of gone our separate ways, and it's very uncomfortable coming into the office and seeing them. So I really want to sell my company for that reason. And I say, if we could take care of that issue, would you still want to sell? The answer is no. No, I really want to enjoy company. I still enjoy it. I just have this other uncomfortable problem. Or they say, I used to go into the lab. I used to, do all my engineering work, but now the company's done so big, I'm doing all of the administrative stuff and HR things. I'm not enjoying that. I said, if we could take care of that problem, would you still want to sell? No, I don't. I want to do this. So I work through those kinds of issues and create solutions. And they say, would you really work with us on that? Your fee would be so much smaller. I say, it's not about that. It's about working with you to achieve your objectives. And people go, thank you. Thank you. We really, really appreciate you having that kind of integrity. Those are the primary things we do. Everything we do involves valuation work.
Mm.
And there are times when we also raise capital for firms. And I have shifted because of my book. I really want to, work hard to have that be in front of people. So I'm doing a lot of podcasts,
Hmm.
which have been a lot of fun. I'm doing a lot of in-person talks. I'm beginning the audiobook process next week. There's a lot about the book. So I've shifted from being deep in the trenches to work through a transaction, have the lawyers, the accountants report through me, to shifting to sharing wisdom. I spent 2 hours this afternoon with the client, just tuning up what his other advisors had suggested. And I can do that in 2 hours rather than have to spend 2 weeks working through the actual documents. So it can be much more efficient and share really my wisdom.
Wow. And what skills do you think are needed to become a successful entrepreneur and last as long as you have as well? What are the crucial skills that have made you succeed this long?
Well, I think it starts with feeling that you know what you're doing. I think a lot of people start a company and they don't really have the right skills. So they're learning on the job, so to speak,
Mm.
or they don't have enough experience. They're really not comfortable in their own skin. This becomes really important when you have service client interaction. And so the starting period for years can be really rocky. So in my case, I spent 10 years with big Wall Street firms. I learned the technical aspects of the business really, really well. And I also was maturing enough to be able to create good client relationships, which is what I was talking about. So I was ready. And I think this is one of the things that some people really need to investigate. Are you really ready? Because I don't think people want to start and then slip backwards or fail. I don't think anybody really wants to sign up for that proposition. Skills are different, depending on what the company is all about, and maybe if you have partners or other resources that are available to you. So you have to know what you're bringing to the party and how valuable that is. So that's one thing. Another thing is just to really establish what it is that you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to build something very big that's going to produce, a lot of annual income for yourself, or are you really trying to create a life for yourself? Which means that you're integrating other parts of your life together, like I did in my case, having the time to be able to invest in our community and be a scoutmaster or be on boards. That was really important to me. And I set that up as one of my initial principles. And so you need to think about that. And if you have a family, you have to say to yourself, am I going to be available to them? Am I going to be able to be at home at night and read a book to the kids or whatever it is? So that's certainly a really important thing. Knowing what is enough, knowing what you're trying to accomplish financially and with the rest of your life. That would be another really huge piece of advice that I would give people, whether they're just starting off or thinking about starting something, or they're already underway and now they're trying to navigate forward well.
Wow. And given that you're in the investments industry, like financial industry, you would have had a lot of challenges that you've overcome and like a lot of failures that might have happened as well. So can you share what challenges that you've had to overcome and the lessons that you learnt from those challenges and the failures? Because everybody has to go through failures to succeed. So what are some of the lessons that you've learnt?
Well, I've been very fortunate. I think my radar has been very good about taking clients. I'm in an area of the world that has a lot of business. What I offer and how I approach it is very appealing to people. I've created a referral system from old clients and with law firms and a few accounting firms, so I don't have to do any marketing, and that's been a real godsend. But to be successful with this, I had to be able to say no to clients or potential clients. And one of the things that it was really important to me is that I had a sense that we could have really good, candid conversations. I needed to know the bad news as it was happening, and not have my client hide that information from me with the idea that if they revealed it, then I would either not be interested or that it would dilute or diminish the value of their firm. And so my radar is quick and good about that. And there were companies and owners that I said, I don't feel good about this. I don't feel that we would be able to create a relationship that is based on that kind of communication, based on that kind of trust. And so I would turn them down. There have been times over 3 decades where I turned down business when I had a lot more capacity. And I said, I'm going to turn something down with the idea that I don't know when the next really good business opportunities to come to me. But I'd rather turn it down than take it and be unhappy with it and maybe not do a good job.
Well, it seems like you have a very good internal intuition and gut feeling, and then you trust that as well. So can we talk about emotions and relationships as well? Because I'm curious to know about your relationship with your marriage as well. Let's talk about how can we let go of negative thoughts that hold us back as well. So you've got a lot of wisdom in life. So if you can share that, that'd be fantastic.
Well, thank you, Linda. That there are several parts of what you just asked
Yeah.
about. Relationships are the juice of life.
Yeah.
I suppose there are people I don't know any personally, but who would love to just be on the desert island or on the mountain top and not deal with anybody else. But I think most people, everybody I know, wants to have relationships and have those relationships be fulfilling and trusting and enduring and deep. A lot of people don't really know how to build a relationship like that. And actually, in my book, I talk about a relationship building ladder where you just step by step get closer and closer to a person. And of course, you stop because you need feedback. You need to make sure that they're interested in going forward with you, asking deeper questions, being more open about what's going on. About a dozen years ago, I woke up one morning and said, wow, my life is so terrific. What would make it better? And I said, if I had a few more really, really great relationships. So I went through my list of friends and I said, I'm going to pick these 6 guys. They were all happened to all be guys. And I said, I'm going to um, talk to them. I'm going to share some vulnerabilities with them, which I'd never done before. They probably thought at that time, oh, this is a guy who's got it all together. Well, it wasn't like I was trying to hide it, but it wasn't the case. And so I began being a little more open with them. And I also realized that there could be the case that I don't think anybody was going to run away and say, this guy is weird. I'm not going to, be a friend with him at all. But I did have the idea that there could be several it would not move the relationship, that, this wouldn't go anywhere. We would be in the same kind of relationship we've been with all the time. But I'm very happy to say that 5 out of 6 became much deeper relationships. They began telling me things that they were worried about or concerned about, and sharing some stories and so on. So I learned from that this whole process of creating, deeper and more enduring relationships. I invest in relationships a lot, and I have a great family. My dad's turning 102 this Sunday.
Well,
Mom's 98. So I have really great genes, and I'm just a kid with grown-up adult children. So it's really great in all those different facets of relationships. I have a wife. We've known each other for 45 years and married for 43, and we are very different, but very complementary. She has a perspective on things that is so helpful for me. The way she sees the world and other people is very different. And I learn from her, and I really appreciate what she contributes. We have the ability to butt heads
mm,
because she's also very, very strong and opinionated. But when we're flowing together and have handoff back and forth, it's very magical. And I feel very incredibly grateful. It's one of the three best decisions I've made in my life. I've made many, many great decisions. Starting my own firm, marrying my wife, and moving to Mill Valley are the top three, and I'm just delighted with those three decisions.
let's go to
Yeah,
the secret of
yeah,
that lasting relationship. What's been the secret to making your
yeah.
relationship last that long? Because that's hard these days as well, especially with the younger generation and social media and whatnot too. But a lot of family breakdowns. So what's your secret?
We're asked about that question a lot by people who have known us for a while, or new people, and they see us in action. They go, "What is your secret?" And I think it boils down to two things, and I'm sure there's a lot of things about it. The one, we really trust each other. There's never a doubt that we're not telling the truth, or we're doing something financially that we don't want to, admit to, or any of that kind of stuff. The trust is absolutely rock solid. And we're also committed to each other in the sense of learning. We're both evolving, and the people we were 10 years ago, or when we first got married, we're very different people now, and we're better people. And we're learning from each other and learning from the world around us and the work we do. We're very committed to making the world a better place in ways that are in our control. And so we have that in common, and we support each other in the work we do.
Wow, that's beautiful. And back to that question, how can we let go of negative thoughts? Like when people go through emotions and roller coasters, you've been through the test of time. How does one have that balance, emotional balance, and let go of any negative thoughts?
Some of my talks, in-person talks, I talk about three elements of emotional health that I think are just so really critical. One is to stop self-sabotaging. It's amazing to me. It's not an issue I have faced, but I see a lot of really talented, great people who don't even get in the game. They say, "Well, I'm not going to follow through with that. I'm not going to accept the invitation over there. I'm not going to apply for that job or that training because I won't be accepted, or the person really isn't, frankly, honestly, that interested in me." They don't give themselves a chance, and I think that's just robbing them of the opportunity. It could be that it doesn't pan out. That's okay. That's not a big deal, but not to even give yourself a chance. So one is just stop self-sabotaging and check yourself out. See if you are or not. A second thing is to learn to forgive. In the course of life, and it doesn't matter whether you're 25 or 85, things have happened where somebody's done something that really hurt you or offended you. They might have done it intentionally or unintentionally. You just got to find a way to forgive them. They may not be around anymore. And if they're not around, I suggest writing them a letter. Obviously, it doesn't get posted, but resolve that. If you have to apologize to them for whatever portion of the problem, you have to be honest. Maybe I participated in this thing. that led to this. Be honest with yourself. If it would help for you to apologize sincerely and honestly, then go do that. If there's some kind of making amends or some kind of restitution, then do that as well. And the other part of forgiving is forgiving yourself. A lot of people carry heavy rocks around in their backpack of things they made mistakes and they're not learning from them. They need to forgive themselves, unburden themselves from those heavy weights, learn from their mistakes, turn them into valuable lessons. So that's number two. And number three in my three-part emotional health is to let go. Now, when I tell people this, they're a little bit shocked because they say, you're all about control. Everything you've done that I can see, your company, your family, you are in control. You're very thoughtful, you're very intentional, and you create a game plan and you check in with people, but you're doing that. And that's a big part of the success that people see in me. And I think it's really true. But about 10, 15 years ago, with great adult children, I realized that I really was not in control. A sort of a wave of humility flooded over me. And I said, my children are making decisions that are not decisions I would make for myself. They're not decisions actually I would make for them, but they're working out. They're working out for them. They seem to be doing just fine. So I need to give up this control. And I like sharing a little exercise with people about learning to let go. And so, Linda, maybe we'll do it together.
Okay,
So what you do is you have your fist and you hold on. You're holding on to something really tight. You're holding on so tight you can see the white knuckles in your hand. You say, I want to let go, but I can't. Okay, then flip your fist over. You see the white knuckles again on the other side. You keep saying, I want to let go, but I can't. And then one day, maybe because you read my book, you say, I have power to make choices, and I'm going to let go of this now. And so you open your hand, you wiggle your fingers and your thumb, and as you let go of this heavy thing, your hand rises up because it's no longer weighed down by that heaviness. And when I first discovered this exercise many years ago, I was doing it regularly, maybe weekly, and it helped. But now that I've gotten even more humble and more aware that I don't really control all that much, I'm just a little guy, I'm doing it, very irregular. I don't need to do it. But when I do it, it just makes me smile and it helps me to let go.
that's beautiful.
So those are the three.
Wow, very powerful.
Emotional
I
health.
love it. Let's talk about thriving and growth as well, because it seems like you've lived a positive life. I want to share that with other people as well. So, what are the first steps to create a positive life and the changes that we need to make as well? And in order to thrive in life, not just live day to day, but also thriving in life.
I think that the first thing is to just get to know yourself. We live in largely an extroverted world where that's not a common thing to do. Fortunately, more and more people are becoming mindful and doing things that will help them, whether they're meditating or doing something else. But getting to know yourself, this self-awareness of your history. I'm not talking about just your facts, but the emotions around who you are now, how you got to be who you are, a deep investigation of those things, whether you're introverted or extroverted, whether you're carrying with you some scars from prior relationships, maybe mom and dad, even if they're not with us anymore. These kinds of things. You need to really get a hold of what it is that makes you tick. You understand your values, understand what your hope and fears are about the world that you're engaged with. And once you have a platform, that's not a one and done kind of thing. It keeps, as we change, as the world changed around us, you need to revisit that. But that's the foundational business that is important to do. You begin to build character. You begin to evaluate yourself. Am I this kind of person or am I that kind of person? And you can build. From there, I think it opens the door to the recognition and I talk about this in a lot of different ways in my book, the power we have to make choices. And the choices about the habits we have, the choices about how to spend our time, that precious thing. Where are we spending our time and with whom? Somebody told me a while back, we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. Well, what if you're the smartest of those 5 people? Or you're the dumbest, or you're the funniest, or you're the biggest sour face around. Well, maybe you need to, mix it up. Maybe you need to bring some new people into your life. So these are choices we have, and choices about emotions. Viktor Frankl talks about this in his beautiful, beautiful book, that you can take everything away from bad things can happen. His whole story comes from the Holocaust. He lost everybody in his family, and he says all of that can be taken away from me. The one thing that can never be taken away from me is my power to decide how I feel about it.
That's so beautiful.
And so this opens the door to how you feel about your emotions. And the good ones are, easier to grapple with, but the bad ones need to be, held in a certain way and maybe diffused, as we were talking about a minute ago. So there's a pathway to thriving. I talk about in my book that there are 4 big segments of thriving. There's thriving personally, which is so important that it's half my book. The last chapter in that first section is having purpose and meaning in life. After the thriving personally is thriving with others. And then there's thriving out in the world, which is being generous, being kind, being of service. And the 4th dimension of this is what I call thriving by moving ever forward. Being a lifelong learner. Keep being curious about things. Take a look, and it doesn't really matter whether you're 40 or however, or 70 or 80 or whatever. Understand what the legacy is that you want to leave. It's a matter of carving your name on hearts now, not on the marble of the tombstone. So once you have a sense of what you'd like your legacy to be, then you can start living it now. And what a treasure you're giving yourself and the world around you to live your legacy.
Yeah, that's so beautiful because I hear a lot of successful people that make heaps of money. They're just miserable and then unhappy and they're depressed and suicidal. But I think one of the key things is because they don't have purpose and they don't have meaning, and also being in service of others is what makes a fulfilling life. Would you agree?
I completely agree with that. I mean, because of my business, I've met a lot of very wealthy people, and I've contributed to their wealth by doing these transactions. But a lot of folks are very confused about their definition of success. Our society, I think it's a kind of a Western view that success is really a very financially oriented thing. But I think the honest answer is that that's a part of things. Of course it is, but it's by no means maybe even the most important thing. There are many other things, like we were talking about relationships, or your own health, or your sense of spirituality, your sense of humility and awe in the world that we're living in. These broader definitions of success are really important to embrace. I know a lot of people who they have a lot of money. It's impressive how much money they have, but I don't think they're successful because littered around them are these failed relationships with family members or with ex-partners, and they're not happy people. So if you're not happy, can you say you're successful? I have a problem with that. That's not my definition of success by any stretch of the imagination. So I believe that we can define success our way, and it's a personal thing. It's again part of this homework that pays very big dividends. When you know who you are and what you stand for, it doesn't matter if there's nobody else who believes that, who is pursuing success the way you are, but you are and you believe in it, Go for it.
It's beautiful, but how would you personally define success? What does it mean for you?
Yeah, I think you've gotten a sense with some of my comments. I think success has to do with a group of things. It's not one or two. It's a whole, call it portfolio, since we're,
Yep.
it's a nice term for it. I think you need to have some physical health. And so that means you take care of yourself. And, I know starting in my 40s, I started running. I started doing things. I had to take time every week to do that. I made a commitment to that. And I'm doing even more of that now. And boy, is that great. It gives me energy. It clears my mind. It's terrific. You need to be interested in the world. This lifelong learning, being curious. Being curious makes life fun. And a side benefit to being curious is that it allows you to have more tools when it comes to conflict resolution. Rather than say, "Oh, Linda, that's so silly. That's ridiculous. Who would believe what you just said?" No, you say, "Linda, that's very interesting. I don't think I understand that. Please tell me more about that." And so you're not challenging the person. You're more involved with being interested in what their point of view is. And it just makes a world of difference in whether they feel defensive all of a sudden or whether they're going to open up and tell you really what they're thinking and feeling. Being a lifelong learner is key. I think having some spirituality. Now, people define that very differently, and I separate religion from spirituality. To me, I am most spiritual when I'm out in nature, often by myself, because then I'm just calming myself down. I'm slowing things up, and I'm able to stop and look at a little bug or a leaf or a bird and just go, "This is amazing. And these creatures are a lot older on the planet than humans are. This is terrific, or a beautiful rock. It's just great, and it gives me a sense of awe and a humility, because in the great scheme of things on our planet and in our galaxy and in the universe, we're insignificant. We all know that, but it's good to be reminded of that. So spirituality would be another one. There are many, many, and they're all covered in my book. Being grateful
Mm.
and having an everydayness about what you're grateful for, really, really is important. You could have had a bad day. You could be having a bad patch. You could be miserable with your job, but look for something you're grateful for. And I think there's a great line that says, "The struggle ends when gratitude begins." So gratitude is yet another one of these really, really key things. And I think being of service, I am happiest when I'm invisible, when I'm focusing on some project or some other person or situation. It's not about me. It's about this other situation that I can be involved with. I'm fortunate enough to be involved with, and provide some value, provide some insight, provide some encouragement. So I have defined my legacy, which I've written down and revised many times over the decades, is four things. One, excellence. And we talked about at the very outset that everything I'm involved with, I have a very, very high bar for myself. And if I need to keep at it and keep learning and keep trying to, work to make it better, then I'm committed to doing that. A second is having purpose. So now my purpose is really around sharing the themes of my book, Thriving. I've always had purpose since high school, and I feel very fortunate about that, but it's not accidental. I work at that. I make sure that the purpose is purposeful and meaningful to me. It doesn't matter if anybody else hears it and says, "Well, that's dumb. Who would want to do that?" Okay, I'm happy with that. A third of my four legacy items is to be encouraging. And I do that as often as I can. That's daily. I meet somebody and I hear a little, I ask them their name. I find out a little bit about their story. Everybody has their own story. People want to share what their story is. And I find something to compliment of that. Genuinely. I'm not just sort of saying, "Oh, this is a cool thing to do. I better tell Linda that she's amazing and cool and neat." No, I say, Linda, you're an amazing host. You're asking these great questions, and I appreciate it. And then the fourth is about love, but I'm not talking about love in a sort of Hollywood way. I'm not talking about love as a romantic, private thing. I'm talking about love as a social good, love as a way of being, which means showing up with respect and kindness and generosity and doing acts of loving kindness to animals and Mother Nature and to other people, living that legacy, which is what I'm doing. And I check myself regularly. I say, well, where are you with it? When's the last time you were encouraging? Or when's the last time you offered to help somebody and mentor somebody? Okay, well, open up, do that, do that.
Wow, that's so beautiful, and you've got so many things that I've got to unpack and ask you as well. So, a few questions that I want to ask is, you stay sharp and you're positive. I love that, and you've mentioned all the things that I totally agree with: the spirituality, the giving, the love, the lifelong learning, all the things that I believe in as well. So, do you have any rituals that do? Do you meditate yourself? Like, is there anything that you do daily that helps you keep your mind sharp and keep you the person that you are as well?
The answer to that starts actually the night before. And it actually even starts earlier than that. Because I'm very disciplined, because I'm very focused, I start with an annual plan. And then I roll that annual plan. What am I going to try to accomplish this year? Some of that's fun, some trips, some travel. There's something big happening with a friend or a family member, or maybe something to do with my company. And so I have a game plan, maybe something to do with my house. I need to, do some repairs. So I have this list. And then I boil it down month by month. Some months are, focused around taxes or doing, financial analysis of our holdings or whatever it is. So it rolls down month to a month level. And what's nice about it is I can move something that I thought would be a February thing. I can move it into March or May. So but I don't lose track of the big items for the year. Then I do a weekly. So I start the week off with an idea of what's coming up. How many meetings do I have? How many obligations do I have? And I budget in time to go get exercise. I'm spending a lot more time with exercise now than I did 10 years ago by far. And boy, is that paying big, big dividends. Stronger, more flexible, more stable, all these things, really important as you age to take care of that. And then I move it into the daily thing. And the daily thing, as I was just mentioning, starts the night before. So I have what I'm going to do tomorrow, Friday, my time. I have a list of those things. Well, I look at it Thursday night, my time now, and I go to sleep thinking, okay, well, I've got to get up that much earlier tomorrow morning because my first thing is so I need to set the alarm or whatever. So I wake up with that sense of today I'm going to do these things. And it could be that I don't get all of them done, so I move it into the next day. But I do the ones that are really most important. There's rarely a day when something that was really in the top 3 or 4 things that I really targeted to do doesn't get done because I got my list and I attack it.
I like it. Very driven. I like that as well. And can I ask, who's been your biggest inspiration? You mentioned that book by Viktor Frankl as well, but are there any books that have really impacted you massively? Like, who's been your biggest inspiration in life?
One thing that people have said that they love about my book is that in the appendix, there's a paragraph of 75 books that I've read that really, really impacted me, influenced me.
Mm,
And they're done by chapter. So, for example, if you want to know about money and which books are really interesting and important to me, go to that chapter. One of the books, for example, on money is a book by Joe Dominguez and Vicki Robin. Joe's passed away, so Vicki has done new editions. It's called Your Money or Your Life. Oh my gosh, what a great book that is. So if I had to pick 2 or 3 of my really favorite books, I would say one is a book called Essentialism. And the subtitle is The disciplined pursuit of less. So this is the thing where you have to say what's important. And I can't do 10 things really well. So let me really take a hard look. What is the most important thing for me to be doing right now? And work on that. And then you can work on number two and three. Yes, at all.
Mm.
So essentialism is one. Another that I read probably 20 years ago, and boy, oh boy, did that turn me around. It's called Positive Intelligence. And this is a book. The subtitle of that one is Why Only 20% of Individuals and Teams Achieve Their Potential. And it's all about the concept of we all have saboteurs
Mm.
that deflate our effectiveness. The king of the saboteurs is judgment. And boy, did I have tons of judgment. And I was using that as a weapon. It was powerful, but it also was a really big negative. And people knew that I was very judgmental. So the king of this group of saboteurs, there are a dozen of them. There's one that is particularly aligned with who you are in the book. This book, Positive Intelligence, helps you figure out who is the accomplice. Everybody has judgment, but then you have another one that goes along with it. And you can then diffuse these things. The actual bigger part of your brain is the sage part of your brain, which gives you creativity, which gives you a lot more effectiveness. So you can shift from being in this place of sabotaging to this place of being effective in a sage, your sage self. Oh, was that a powerful, really, really great book? So I very much recommend that to people. So those are a couple, three, I guess,
Written it all down.
that I mentioned. But they're organized by chapters, so you can just go and say, "Hey, I want to read about gratitude or, emotions, or whatever it is." And there's a book. There's a book for you.
I love it. That's very, very helpful. Thank you so much for that. What legacy do you hope to leave behind? I mean, you've got such great accomplishments. You've done so much in your life as well, and you still seem like you've got a lot more to give to the world as well. So, I'm curious to know
Thank you.
what legacy
Thank
are
you.
do you want to leave behind for the world?
When I first started writing this book, I thought that that would be the legacy, that I would be giving this book to my family and dear friends. But then, as I shared it with a couple of early readers and my content editor, they say, "This is so much of a bigger book than that. Please, please get it published, spread the word as widely as you can. People need to get on track and get unstuck or get clear, reach their potential as a possibility. So please share that." So I've shifted, it's a kind of a purpose more than a legacy, but with the recording of the book, I'm going to do my own reading of the book. People said, "Well, one of the benefits that will be is that people will hear your voice into the future,
Mm.
long after you're gone." And yeah, they can read your book, but they'll hear your voice. They'll hear your passion. They'll hear your commitment, your discipline, and those kinds of stuff. So that's in the bigger scheme of my legacy, which we talked about a couple of minutes ago, which I'm living now, is this excellence, purpose, encouragement, and love is a way of being. And I'm getting at that with great vigor.
I love it. I can hear it all in that your tone and the passion as well. So that's beautiful, and hopefully when you do record it, that people will be downloading that Audible as well. If you could share one life wisdom, what would it be for the audience?
Well, I hope this is encouraging and motivating for people. What I'm talking about is not a simple thing, and I understand that. I certainly have been built with a certain kind of discipline that allows me to get up and go with this. I have a very high set point for happiness. I'm relentlessly positive, and these all help me a lot. And I know some people don't have those available to them as much, but they can improve them.
Where did
They can improve them. So
Can I ask, where did all this come from? Like, because you do have a lot of discipline, and did it come from your childhood upbringing? I'm just curious to know.
yeah, for the discipline, element. I have to attribute that to my parents. My father is a very disciplined guy. He's a little emotionally cold. Partly that's generational, but it had to do it his way, and his way often had a lot of moral compass associated with it. The reason for doing it was clear. It was about helping, and I got from my mother, you got to do it right. If I had a set of chores to do and she check them out and say, no, it's, I can see it does not look over here. You see what I'm pointing at? That's not, no, you need to go
Yeah.
redo it. So I learned that set of disciplines
Disciplines.
from my parents. Just an excellence thing. I think it was a cycle of reinforcement. I'm so very fortunate. I had some great teachers and I buckled down and I've had a great education. I've had some good mentors along the way. I could have used more mentors. There's no doubt about that. But the mentors I have had, I really appreciate. They were inspiring to me. They saw me as who I was. They were incredible advocates for me, and I appreciate that. So, a lot of this as an adult, even as a young adult, was me crafting and looking inside. What kind of person do I want to be? In my talks, I talk about what kind of pirate do you want to be? Do you want to treasure your possessions or do you want to treasure your relationships? Well, to me, that's easy. But I love the question because there are pirates running around who are very interested in possessions.
Mm.
And then there's another one. This is a great motivational speaker. He passed away about a dozen years, Zig Ziglar. And he said, be the kind of person where if somebody said something bad about you, no one would believe it. Wow. Well, that's worth being that person. And I have to say that 20, 30 years ago, there would probably be people running around saying, Rand, I could say some bad stuff about Rand and it'd probably be true. And I'd probably agree with them. But I don't think that's the case anymore because I've taken a look at those things and I work hard to clean up. I'm trying to be the best person I can be.
I love it. This has been very beautiful and inspiring, and I'm definitely keen to read your book as well. Finally, where can people find you?
Probably the easiest thing is to go to my website, my book website, randselig.com, RAND, as in Sam, ELIG.com. Book description, my bio, some unbelievable testimonials. If you give me your email address, you get about 40 quotes, my favorite quotes from the book, and there's some really amazing gems in that group. You can also, there's a list, media page with some other podcasts, and when yours comes available, I'll add yours too, Linda.
Thank you.
So that's one thing. The book is available at Amazon. It's available at all the independents and Barnes and Noble and so on. So, if people would like to reach me on my website, there's a contact page, and they can say, "Hey, I have a question about this," or "Frankly, I disagree with what you said in chapter 7," or whatever. Or, "Hey, we'd like to invite you to come talk." I'd love to engage with people that way too.
Nice. Your story has been very inspirational, and it's been a pleasure. So I wish you all the best with the big book growth. And guys, if you've enjoyed this just as much as I have, please hit the like and subscribe button, and be sure to grab his book when it's available as well. Thank you so much for your time, Rand. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Linda.